I did get a message from Jennifer Baum just indicating that she was going to be a little bit late. She was headed home from, I think, picking up her kids or something. So she'll be joining us, but might be a couple of minutes late. Who just joined with a phone number ending 4113?
This is Joel. I just got in here.
Okay. I thought I recognized the number, so I just wanted to make sure who it was. Thank you. Just get a few more minutes. We're still missing a few folks that I know had accepted the invite. So it looks like so far we have from District 1's board, Josh, Joel, and Jason. And from District 2 through 5, it looks like we have Brandon and Chris right now. And then we also have, oh, Kelly's joining right now. All right, with that, Kelly's on and Josh. So we have a quorum of both of the boards. Jennifer Baum, I know, was running a couple of minutes late. I'm not sure if Bruce Rao or Eric Jones were going to join. They both accepted the invite, but they haven't joined us yet today.
Bruce let me know he had a conflict, so he wouldn't be able to join.
Okay. And then I think Sam had a conflict for today from District 1. So if you want to proceed, we could call the meetings to order at this point.
Yeah, I think that would be great, Jennifer. Are you going to play parliamentarian for us today?
Yes, I'm ready. If everyone can see my screen, we should have District 1's agenda in front of you, which looks substantially similar to the other agendas. So with that, we do have a quorum of both, or all 5 boards. For consultants, you have myself, Jennifer Ivey, you have Jerry Jacobs, you have Brittany, you have Shelby, and you have Emma from MSI. And then we have, it looks like 4 members or 3 members of the public that have joined us so far today. So we can call the meetings to order. Item 2 are directors matters, disclosure matters. I did file those for everyone who provided them with the Secretary of State and with the board. So we're all set there unless anybody has anything specific they wanted to note. Hearing none, I will move on to item 3 on all of the agendas. This is approval of additions to deletions from the agenda. I don't have any changes to request. I don't know, Shelby, Jerry, anybody have any changes?
None from me.
None from me.
All right, hearing none, we'll do District 1 first. I would take a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
This is Jason. I'll go with that motion.
Thank you, Jason.
I'll second, Josh.
All right, all in favor from District 1, please say aye.
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 All right, and from Districts 2 through 5, I would take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, item 4 is public comment for matters not on the agenda. So do any of our members of the public have anything that they would like to comment on today?
This is Tyler Gerhardt. I'll go ahead and open it. I would like to comment on the recent notification that basketball hoops are not going to be permitted to be standing in and towards streets, nor children allowed to play basketball in the streets, and that any basketball hoops must be taken down daily. I feel that this is inappropriate for our community that's filled with wonderful children who are, for the most part, very respectful and competent of being able to manage their outside activities on the streets in appropriate manners.
Okay. Before we address that, any other members of the public that wanted to comment on matters not on the agenda today?
Nothing from me. This is Jess McNeil.
Thank you. And I think the other member of the public that's on is Lisa. Did you have anything?
Nope, I don't have anything. I'm just listening.
Okay, great. Tyler, and I will hand it over to Jerry or Brittany if they want to discuss the basketball hoops. We did have some correspondence with Jason Manley from District 1's board on this topic because he was asking about the origins of that requirement. And that requirement is in the covenants. That is in the covenants that were placed on the property by the developer back in 2004, 2003. I don't have the date in front of me. So in order to change that covenant, the process that would be required is quite intensive. It would have to not only take consent of the developer, but it also would take consent of all the property owners or percentage of the property owners that are out there, as well as I think some mortgage holders. I don't have the specific in front of me, but Jerry and Brittany, did you want to comment on this as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's been in place since the beginning of the development as part of the covenants. Our community management company, MSI, that's one of their jobs is to enforce the covenants. I think it's pretty clearly stated that you can have basketball hoops and you can play basketball, but the temporary variety of them need to be stored out of sight or screened from sight when not in use. And just to kind of explain the origin of the covenant is because if we don't keep items like play equipment and toys and things like that picked up, they just kind of find a way of wandering around the community. If you get a basketball hoop that blows over in the wind and somebody, is driving by, a potential, new homeowner or something like that, it just looks, it can get to look unkept if we don't keep everything, tidied up. So that's kind of why that specific covenant is in place, just to keep the neighborhood looking uniform and clean.
Thanks,
Jerry, can I, excuse me.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, John. I was just going to expand. The other thing I meant to say was that, so it's one of these odd situations because Jason's question when he asked it was, well, what's the process to get the district to change this? And the answer is the district actually can't change it. So the district is empowered with enforcing the covenants, and they do that through MSI, but the district doesn't actually have the ability to alter the covenants in any sort of unilateral way. So it still takes that consent I was talking about. Sorry, I'll go ahead, Josh.
Oh, no problem at all. I was just going to ask Jerry, what prompted the communication out to the community? Was there a resident complaint or something like that? As I kind of look across our community, I think we're generally in compliance with covenants, but I think there's a lot of them that just aren't enforced. So I was curious what prompted the email and the kind of uptick in enforcement.
Yeah, to my knowledge, Josh, it was complaints from residents within the community that they were being left out and not tended to.
Would those complaints come into MSI? Maybe Emma could comment on that.
Hi, everybody. Yeah. Hi there. Yes, I got several, unfortunately, I got several homeowner complaints and calls and emails from neighbors in the neighborhood commenting about the basketball hoops. So it is coming from homeowners.
Thank you, Emma.
All right, we did have one other member of the public, Jana, that joined after I did the call for public comment. So I would just ask, Jana, did you have any public comment for matters not on the agenda?
No, I'm just here about the basketball hoops too.
Okay, well, you jumped in the middle of it, but I think you got the essence of it.
Yeah, I think so.
This is Tyler Gerhart. Can I ask one clarifying question? Because the covenants do read that it has to be a non-permanent basketball hoop. I never read anything in the covenants that said that it had to be shielded or taken down on a daily basis when not in use. But we with these basketball standards that are non-permanent, they are semi-permanent, because if they're not weighted properly, then that's when they become a distraction and a deterrent to our property values and to the appeal of the community. So I think that one, there seems to be some problems with the wording. Is there no possible avenue to changing that wording? And then the second question that I have about that is the communication that was sent out also was very strongly worded to say that no basketball play could be had in the street. So even if we're taking it down every day and we have them play in the street, it made that appear to be that would be a violation as well. So is there any kind of clarification on the communication that was sent out that may have not been properly worded to match what the covenant says?
I don't know who wants to take that. I without flipping through all of my emails, which I can't do online right now. I can't recall what exactly the communication said, but I can definitely circle back with Emma and Jerry and Brittany and make sure that if the communication was unclear, that something clear is sent out as a follow-up to the community. To answer your first question, Tyler, the process for changing the covenants is exactly what I vaguely described to you, which is that the property owners and the developer as a property owner and certain mortgage holders would have to approve. So it's not a process that's likely to occur to change the covenants. Now, there are some design standards that also apply, and Brittany, Jerry, and I have just recently looked at those and are making some refinements in those to address this issue. So we are considering it and trying to refine it in ways that we can, but unfortunately the covenant can't really be changed without going through quite a lengthy process.
Hey there. So this is Jason jumping in again, or weighing in. So Emma, I know you mentioned you got multiple complaints from different homeowners about the basketball being left out. I know you've also got multiple complaints about the communication going out and people that are just as upset with or reneging basically on saying, hey, we're now going to start enforcing this side of it. Do you have a good weigh-in of how many people were complaining about the basketball hoops being out versus how many complained to you about, hey, we're now enforcing this new covenant? Like, what sides are we kind of seeing on that?
Yeah, I'll have to discuss that with Jerry and Brittany. Since I've taken over management the last 6 months working with the district, I've got it several times.
Do you have a distinct count per homeowner by chance?
I haven't been tallying that information, no, but I do have it, no.
Okay. I think that may be helpful in kind of understanding too this piece of it. I know it's a long and arduous task to modify these covenants, but I mean, we got the builder who's on boards 2 through 4. They're still here in the community. I'm sure they want to keep our residents happy. I know we got the mortgage holders, and it is a strong view from the homeowners and the community that, hey, this is probably something that should be looked at and reviewed. Maybe that should be something we kind of look at. So you can get us a distinct count by homeowner of who's complained by it. I don't need to know names or anything like that. We can keep it completely anonymous. I just want to know how many have complained versus what the neighborhood looks like and what we should do to keep our residents happy, basically.
Absolutely understood.
Can I make a couple comments, I guess, from my perspective? I think the intent is there to maintain the aesthetic of the community and keep it clean, on that basis. And that was really why it was put in place. Obviously during this period of kind of COVID restrictions, and a lot of people are at their homes and so forth. There has been other communities, not just Erie Highlands, that have asked for, the leniency on some of those restrictions, and taking them out after 24 hours and so forth. And that could be a consideration. I'm not sure how we would accomplish that. But in terms, I guess, the overall community's desire to have a clean cut street versus to have basketball courts or temporary basketball net set up, we would need probably a lot more information, and I don't know, perhaps survey information and so forth to determine, I guess, what the recommendation would be, and we would ask, or we may ask, I guess, that to occur, I guess, in terms of gathering data. Jason, I think you mentioned gathering data of how many complaints there are versus that, but I guess we would like to seek a recommendation, but I guess procedurally, that's another situation, I guess, as Jennifer has mentioned. If there were that recommendation set forth, how would we actually accomplish that? And that could be difficult, but I'm not sure if there's any other workarounds, I guess, in design guidelines, so forth.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not a workaround for changing the CCRs, which is where the stringent requirement comes from. But I mean, as you are alluding to, Brendan, if it's the desire of the community, we could work through the process of getting the CCRs amended. It's quite a process. So
this is Jess McNeil. Just a thought. Understand the desire to want to keep the community clean. Obviously, this isn't something certainly that's been enforced for a number of years. Given the lack of cleanliness that is obviously as a result of the construction that's ongoing, the landscaping that's not done yet, could we delay enforcement until those aspects that make the community perhaps less appealing are completed as well, so it all kind of gets enforced at the same time?
there really isn't any provision for delayed enforcement. I mean, the district is charged with enforcing the covenant, so I can't speak to why some things may have not been seen or noticed or enforced in the past, but I mean, there's really not an ability for the district to make a unilateral decision to, delay the enforcement of any specific covenant. But a good thought. So it sounds like maybe we should add this as an agenda item for future meetings when we can have some more information about the number of complaints and maybe community thoughts on this.
Yeah, what may be helpful is, Emma, can we task you at MSI basically to put together a questionnaire survey, some type of communication that goes out to all of Erie Highlands, not just the single district 1 or 2, but everyone is here, and kind of gather that data points that we can take and review at our next meeting and kind of go from there?
Yeah, I can definitely discuss that with the district.
Okay. No, I mean, we definitely have to caveat it as we cannot guarantee anything will happen, but we are just only doing a data gathering at the moment to see the pros or the fors and nays, basically.
Sure. Yeah, I'll definitely discuss it with them.
All right.
In addition to the action that's being taken on behalf of the board for the residents of this community, is it appropriate to ask from a resident standpoint for any enforcement of this standard to be delayed until there's a final decision made going forward? Especially, I mean, we have families who are dealing with being, quarantined, families who don't have full access to school right now. There's certainly a community need for being able to get out and use our basketball standards, and the covenant being written as such that you have to take a 10-foot pole and standard and backboard and have that completely hidden from view every time you're not using it is not really reasonable.
As I mentioned, unfortunately, there's not really an ability for the district to pick and choose which covenants it is enforcing. So I guess I would leave it to more creative minds than my legal mind. But as you know, as Brittany's put in the chat, the requirement is that they have to be stored out of view except when in use. So while it may not be convenient, if the community feels a need for the basketball hoops, and maybe it might be possible to get, several members of the community to work together to put them out and while they're in use and then put them away at the end of the day. I don't know.
It's a great suggestion. Where should we put them where they're not in view? I mean, these are massive things.
Most people typically can store them in their garage or behind their fences, their wing fences, lay them down on the side of the house.
So Emma, have you currently had to, I know we just sent the communication out for enforcement on this piece. Has this actually been enforced to any residents yet?
I have yet. It was as of March 1st, and I was waiting until this board meeting and as well to go on inspection. So
Okay, since the boards are required to enforce the CCRs, are we? And I know we can't really say too much leniency, but are there other items we should be using your time to better enforce on for the time period until this comes back up?
that is up to you. I am just doing my job. I'm
fully understand. I'm just wondering if there's anything else we could kind of have focused on that piece, and that's. I know we have to say it's enforced, but
it sounds like Emma's time is going to be spent putting together some sort of a poll of the community. So
yeah,
I think maybe we have enough guidance for now, and we could let Emma get to work on putting together sort of that poll and coming back to the board.
No, that sounds good. That sounds good.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for understanding.
Hey, really quick, as we're wrapping this up, the one thing I would ask though, from both MSI and from the Timberline side is, I think it would be helpful if we got a preview of the emails before they went out to the community. Because looking back on this, it does make it sound like the board is asking MSI to enforce this on a particular date, and I think we've kind of disproven that from this conversation.
That's a great point. All right. Moving on to item 5 on the agenda, then this is on all 5 agendas. This is approval of the November 17th, 2020 special meeting minutes. Those were in your meeting packets. I will start with District 1. If I could get any questions, comments, or revisions. If not, I would take a motion to approve.
I'd motion to approve.
I'll second, Jason.
All right. A motion and a second. All in favor of approving those minutes from District 1, please say aye.
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 All right. And then Districts 2 through 5, a motion to approve.
Moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Item 6, this is a highly technical request from me. Josh and Kelly and Brendan, I think I'd already reached out to before the November 17th meeting. And then in the million agenda items we had at that meeting, I forgot to mention it to the boards. We have a requirement under the district's service plan to provide notice to the town of meetings 5 business days in advance. November 11th was Veterans Day, which is a holiday, although our office doesn't close for that holiday. So it really wasn't on our radar. So the district received notice of the meeting 4 business days in advance of the meeting, or 6 calendar days, which obviously there was members of the public that attended, and it was posted in accordance with state law. But so out of abundance of caution, your board presidents had no concern with moving forward with the meeting. I had no concern. The town did post it to their town meeting board. It was just received a bit late. I just wanted to take an action to ratify all the meeting actions taken at the November 17th meeting at this meeting, which was sent to the town 5 business days in advance. So like I said, highly technical legal issue, but I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention and make sure we ratified those actions. So happy to answer any questions on that point. If not, I would just take a motion to ratify those actions.
So moved.
I'll move on behalf of You're doing it on all districts?
All right, got you, Brandon. I got Josh. Have a second for District
And I'll-
1.
I'll second, Jennifer.
Okay, and I heard
And
Kelly
I'll-
for
I'll
District.
second, yep, I'll second for 2 through 5.
All right, all in favor from all districts, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. And I apologize for that oversight. Like I said, Veterans Day was not a day that was on our radar as being a town holiday, so my apologies. Item 7 gets us into financial matters. First up, we have budget amendments for Districts 1 and Districts 4. So first, for District 1, I would take a motion. Well, actually, no, I'm going to hand it over, Shelby, to you to review the budget amendments first, because I think that makes more sense than opening a public hearing before you've discussed it. So I will flip to those.
Great.
As soon as my bookmark comes up and lets me see where I'm going.
All right.
Oh, I'm failing, Shelby. I promised you I was going to have this up and somehow my PDF is failing. Hold on one second.
I'm happy to do it if you want me to.
All right. After I told you I was going to have this. All right. I'm just going to make you the host for now. I apologize.
Don't worry about it.
I'll stop sharing and let you share.
Okay. So as Jennifer stated, we have budget amendments included in the packet for District 1 and District 4. So looking at District 1 first, this is for the debt service fund. And this is a result of the refinancing of the 2015 bonds. So we initially had a budget of $550,000, and we are amending the budget to $10,960,000. The largest item there is the refunding payment of the 2015 bonds. Any questions on that before we look at District 4? Okay. So District 4, here we are presenting a budget amendment for the general fund for 2020. The original budget was $740,000, and we have presented an amendment to $775,000. There are a couple different primary drivers of this, which I intend to dive a little bit deeper when we review the financial statements. I would just, kind of say landscaping is a big piece of that, and we can talk further details with the financials or now if there are any questions. I'm happy to go into more detail.
All right, hearing no immediate questions, what I'd be looking for would be a District 1 motion to open a public hearing on the 2020 budget amendment.
All motion, so moved.
Do you have a second from District 1?
This is Joel. I'll second it.
Thank you, Joel. And then all in favor for District 1 to open the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, and then from District 4, if I could get a motion to open the public hearing? Brandon, do you have a second? Chris, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, any members of the public have any comments or questions on the District 1 or District 4 proposed 2020 budget amendments?
So this is Jason, this member of public for District 4. I'm definitely interested in that $35,000 difference.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm happy to dive into the details now, if that's everybody's preference. Let me get to that page. So again, I'll circle back around when we get to the actual financial statements. But here's the expenditures of District 4 for 2020. So total, we had, again, the budget of $740,000. Our expenditures on these financial statements are just under $761,000. We did bump up slightly just to account for any kind of last minute things that might kind of filter in as we work through the audit, though I don't really anticipate anything. So we had a total budget overage of about 21,000. You'll see in this column that there's several variances, both positives and negatives. So just looking really quickly at some of the larger variances in our administrative kind of category, a few things here stand out. The first is accounting. We did actually have a positive variance there for 2020 of about 26,000. For elections, we had budgeted 40,000 and we incurred just $9,000 in expenses there. So we had about a $31,000 positive variance there, just not needing to kind of the full ballot election, which was what was budgeted for. And then a couple of the negative variances here, district management and miscellaneous, and those two somewhat go hand in hand. District management, we were over budget. Some of that was COVID related time with just kind of Jerry's team reacting to that and kind of, getting everything in place they needed to. So the district did receive some relief funds to help offset some of those costs. And then the management team had also incurred just some additional time with budgeting. We had, several workshops in the last year. So those were kind of the primary drivers there. Looking at operations and maintenance, again, we have some positives and negatives here. The largest one is landscaping. And Jerry could better speak to this, but just overall had much higher landscaping costs than what was budgeted for multiple different items. One is just, additional landscaping that the district was responsible for in 2020. Snow removal was also over budget by about 25,000. That's one of those line items that's really hard to budget for. So unfortunately, we just had higher snow removal costs than what we had budgeted. And then for the clubhouse and pool, here again, you'll see kind of a lot of different variances. So one, we did have a positive variance for clubhouse management of about 35,000. And for operations and maintenance of about 19,000. Pool maintenance and lifeguards, I'll kind of address those together. That was a total budget of about 100,000. And we were over budget there about 34,000. And a lot of that was due to additional cleaning time that was needed, primarily due to construction activity. Because of that activity, there was cleaning needed daily. So that was a primary driver there. So those are kind of the largest line items or variances that we saw this year.
Shelby, quick question. Where do the COVID relief funds come in?
Yeah, good question. So we do have other revenue up here of about 5,000. And Jerry, maybe you can speak to if we have any additional requests that are outstanding. We have been receiving or recording those as the funds are received. Just under, kind of how we need to record that revenue. So Jerry, do you know off the top of your head if we have any outstanding requests that we haven't seen reimbursed yet?
I would have to get with my staff on that, but if there is anything that is outstanding, we should be seeing that wrapped up by the end of this month and get the funding for it.
Thanks, Jerry.
So Shelby, it would show up under the other revenue?
Yeah, I believe that's the only item in that other revenue line item.
And then another one I saw that was kind of a bit over was the irrigation. If I remember correctly, wasn't that one cut from next year's budget completely? We went from 2 to needing 17. I would have to go back and look on that to remember to see. But seeing these variations, seeing that we're actually closer to 60 grand over the original budget, because thankfully we did recover that 35 from the or 30 grand from the not having the election this year. I'm wondering if we need to also, I know once again, the member of the public, I can't say what Board 4 should or should not do, but knowing that, hey, we were off by 65 grand for 2020, what does that look like for the budget for 2021 now that we're in March, and what should we look at maybe adjusting and proactively kind of doing on that piece?
Yeah, and Jason, that's going to be, larger discussion item for all 5 of the boards once we get through kind of these budget amendments and then the financials.
Right.
That's kind of the meat of the
Yep.
discussion.
I know you and Jennifer know strongly where I am on that, so I just had to be vocal.
Can we speak to the maybe it's Jerry? Can you speak to the landscaping variance?
Yeah, so the landscaping, I mean, as Shelby said, the primary drivers there were taking on new areas of the property like Erie Parkway, streetscape, common areas, the Erie Parkway medians. We did do some chemical treatments for the trees to try and, save as many of those as we could. There was some detention pond rehab that we had to undergo. The town required that through their annual inspections. So we did have to run through that exercise to stay in compliance with the town. Then we did do winter watering, and there were also some playground equipment repairs that we had to undergo for safety, as well as some concrete repairs on the walkways. That was also a safety item. And since we didn't have line items for those, they got put into the landscaping line item because there was nowhere else to code them to. And for the irrigation repairs, that line item is the same situation. There was no irrigation repair line item for the common areas in the 2020 budget. So every irrigation repair that was done got coded to the irrigation repair line item for the clubhouse.
Great, thanks. It looks like we do have a separate line item for irrigation repairs in the 2021 budget.
Yes, we do. That's correct.
Any other members of the public that have any public comment on the proposed 2020 budget amendments?
This is Jess McNeil, and I don't know that anyone's got an answer to this question now, but I would just question kind of the accountability on some of these costs. So for example, irrigation repair, every time there's snow plowing that's done, you walk past more busted sprinkler heads. For me, that strikes me as something that the people who are paying to do the snow plowing, if they damage something, they should be repairing. I don't know what accountability there is that goes into that. Similarly with the irrigation pond, the reason that it keeps getting blocked is because the landscaping's still not done. And kind of the people fixing it have said, yeah, when all this is done, that's going to it's going to stop getting blocked, and we're going to stop having people need to come out every week to fix it. So I guess I would just ask the board to really look into some of these line items and the unexpected costs and think about the accountability for them and whether that should be something that the district is paying for.
All right, any other members of the public? Hearing none, I would take a motion from a District 1 board member to close the public hearing.
This is Jason. I'll go ahead and motion for that.
And a second.
Second, Josh.
All right, and all in favor from District 1?
Aye.
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 All right, and then a motion from District 4 to close the public hearing.
So moved.
And a second.
Sorry, I'll second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, any other board member questions, comments on the budget amendments? If there are none, I would take a motion to approve the budget amendments for 2020 as presented today.
I'll motion, Josh.
All
I'll make
right,
the motion.
and a second from District 1,
I'll second.
and a second from District 4. Chris or Kelly, do you want to second that?
So moved, sorry.
All right, Kelly, I'm marking you as a second because Brandon had already moved.
Yep.
All in favor from all the districts, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, motions carry. That takes us to item 7B, which on districts 1, 2, and 4 are the December 20 or 31st financial statements.
All right. So I will run through all 3 sets of financial statements since they are year-end financial statements. So looking at district number 1 first, page 15 of your packet is going to be the balance sheet for governmental funds. This is for your general and debt service funds. At the end of the year, the district had total assets of just over 1 million. About 700,000 represents receivables. The largest of that is the 2020 taxes levied for 2021 collection, with the remaining 320,000 of funds on hand, primarily with the trustee for purposes of the 2020 bonds. Total liabilities are about 21,000. The largest item there is 20,000 accounts payable in the debt service fund for some cost of issuance payments that were made in January. Our deferred inflows of resources, 700,000. Again, this is our taxes levied in 2020 for 2021 collection. And total fund balances, 301,000 going into 2020, and that is all in the debt service fund. So page 16 is our general fund statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances. Total revenues were slightly under budget at about 279,000 compared to the budget of 292,000. The primary driver here is just the specific ownership taxes. This is pretty consistent with what we've seen across other communities as well. And we believe a part of that is really just timing differences, since a lot of the DMV offices had to close for a portion of the year. So we may see some of that caught up in 2021. Total expenditures match our revenues at 279,000. 275,000 represents the net property tax collection sent to district number 4 to fund the operations and maintenance. And then page 18 is our debt service fund. So here, looking at total revenues, these were about 9.8 million. The largest line item here is the bond proceeds for refunding the 2015 bonds. We had total property taxes at about 666,000, and similar to our general fund, the specific ownership taxes did come in under budget at 32,000 compared to the budget of 46,000. Total expenditures were just over 10.9 million. And of course, the largest item here is that refunding payment to the 2015 A and B bonds. Again, total fund balances here about 301,000. The following pages, we have the schedule of cash position. This details the cash balances at the end of the year and any subsequent activities. Really nothing significant to note here. And then following that is the property tax reconciliation for the year, showing total property tax collections by month. And then we include the debt service schedule for the 2020 bonds. Any questions on the District 1 financial statements?
I know it wasn't much, but with the loss in the revenue from Department of State for tax and titles, that piece of it, we're not looking at any changes to our levy rate, right, for debt service? Like I know it was very little. I highly doubt it, but I just want to be very proactive in asking the question.
Yeah, good question, Jason. So just a reminder, the O&M mill levy is fixed at 20 mills. That is adjusted for, or has been adjusted for changes in the residential assessment ratio. So right now it's at about 22.6. And the debt service mill levy for District 1 was decreased for 2021, just in conjunction with that bond refinancing. But the specific ownership taxes, that's just a percentage that comes to the district based on what each district or each jurisdiction levies and taxes. So it's just a proportionate share, and typically, we wouldn't adjust the mill levy to account for any increases or decreases in that. And typically with debt service, we would want to make sure that the property tax collections themselves would be sufficient for the debt payments. So even if we saw 0 specific ownership taxes, we would still be covered.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was hoping that was the case. I just wanted to be very proactive in understanding.
Yep, good question. And Jennifer, do you want to do 3 separate motions or all at once?
We'll do 2 separate motions. So if you want to just go through all of them,
Okay.
And then we can go through the motions.
Will do. All right, so next we have the District 2 financial statements. So starting on page 9 of the District 2 packet, our balance sheet for both general and debt service funds. Total assets were just under 1.9 million. About 416,000 represents receivables. The largest balance there again is 2020 taxes levied for 2021 collection. And the remainder amounts in assets are funds held by the trustee for the district's bonds. Total liabilities are about 8,300 and represent amounts due to District 4 for the O&M tax collections, as well as some paying agent fees that the district paid on behalf of District 2. Our deferred inflows of resources represent the property taxes for 2021 of 416,000. And our total fund balances at the end of the year, just over 1.4 million. So page 10 is our general fund. Total revenues, again, we're just slightly under budget at about 73,000 compared to the budget of 76,000. Same story here on the specific ownership taxes. And again, our expenditures match our revenues at 73,000, primarily represent the amount sent to District 4 for operations and maintenance. Page 12 is our debt service fund. Total revenues here were about 210,000, which was about 164,000 under budget. The primary negative variance here is system development fees. Those were budgeted based on the initial forecast done with the district's bonds, and of course are subject to fluctuation each year. So those came in at about 17,000. And then specific ownership taxes tracked slightly behind for the year. And then interest income was also behind budget at about 10,000 compared to the budget of 25,000, just due to the decrease in interest rates over the course of 2020. Total expenditures are about 626,000, which were essentially right in line with the budget. Again, here we have our schedule of cash position. Nothing significant to note here with any of the activities since the end of the year. We have our property tax reconciliation, and then finally the debt service maturity schedule for the 2018 A bonds. Any questions on District 2?
Shelby, do you know how many homes that represents?
Oh, I don't off the top of my head, Brandon.
Okay, get back to me on that.
I will. Okay. We will move on to District 4. So we do not present any financial statements for Districts 3 or 5. Moving to District 4. Page 18 of the board packet for District 4 is our balance sheet. This is our general debt service and capital projects funds. Total assets were about 188,000 at the end of December. About 129,000 represents current cash on hand. About 52,000 represents various receivables. So those are amounts due from the other 4 districts, as well as the property tax receivable for 2021 of about 42,000. And we have prepaid expense of about 7,000, which represents 2021 insurance premiums that we paid in 2020. Total liabilities are about 95,000. 78,000 represent current accounts payable, and about 17,000 represent landscape deposits on hand that will eventually be returned to homeowners. Total deferred inflows, again, these are 2021 property tax collections, about 42,000. And total fund balances going into 2021, about 51,000. So looking at page 19, our general fund, total revenues were just barely under budget. We had total revenues of 964,000, which was about 5,000 under budget. A portion of this is from both the specific ownership taxes for District 4, as well as the collections from Districts 1, 2, 3, and 5, as a result of their specific ownership taxes also being under budget. And total expenditures, we touched on most of the highlights here when we were talking about the 2020 budget amendment, but I would be happy to entertain any additional questions we didn't touch on at that time. We had total fund balances for our general fund just under 51,000. And as I mentioned during the 2020 budget amendment, there could be additional changes to this before we finalize the audit. But at this point, I don't expect any significant changes.
If we do have changes, I mean, is that going to cause another budget amendment, or may that? Depends.
Yeah, that's why I did bump up the amendment to 775 to give us about a $15,000 cushion. Okay. We've done a pretty thorough review of our expenses, and I, again, don't really anticipate anything, but just wanted to cover us if anything came up.
Okay, so we got about 15,000 contingency, I guess, if anything comes up. Okay, thanks.
Yep. All right, page 21 is the debt service fund. Here, total revenues were 61,000, just about 2,800 under budget. And total expenditures were 170,000. And the largest line item here is the developer repayment through the process with the cost verifications that we made throughout the year. So total fund balances here, just $211 going into 2021. The capital projects fund, we did have a budget here of $1 million, primarily as a placeholder for any cost verifications. I will state that when we work through the audit, we will need to record the verifications that were completed in 2020. So I apologize, they're not reflected here, but we are well within that $1 million budget for 2020. Schedule of cash position. Again, really nothing significant to note here. Any subsequent activities since the end of the year. And then we include the property tax reconciliations for districts 3, 4, and 5. Any other questions on the financial statements?
This is Tyler Gerhardt. I do have one question on the 17K that's in there for landscaping deposits. It seems like that number is awfully high, considering the number of homes that have gone past where they should have received a refund for landscaping. I understand that there's many reasons why that could be, but is there a point where the funds get forfeited and that money's given back to the district, or just given back to them if a review is done of what's in place in their yards?
Yeah, I don't believe that there's any time constraints in which the district would then just be able to kind of take those funds. Jerry or Brittany, I don't know if you have anything to add on the process or the current balance of funds on hand.
No, I mean, we haven't forfeited those funds. I mean, it gets transferred to the district and the district holds it in a special account so that when those homeowners do in fact complete their landscaping, submit for final inspection, then MSI can inspect it, and then those escrows can be returned to the homeowners.
Thank you.
Okay. No other questions. Jennifer, do you want to walk us through the motions?
Yeah,
Really?
so if you look,
Sorry, Jennifer.
that's
Shelby, I don't know if you wanted me to cover this later or not. There is a page 27 in the meeting packet that's just a schedule of It's actually end of 20. It's the last couple months of checks. I didn't know if
Yep.
you want questions on that now or.
I believe we have that as a separate motion.
Got it. Okay, I'll hold it. Oh, you're right. Sorry, I was on the wrong page.
No worries.
Yeah, that is next up. So on the financial statements for 12/31, what we'd be looking for would be a motions from 1, 2, and 4 to accept the financial statements as presented. So I would take a motion from District 1.
A motion.
So moved. Oh,
And
jumping the gun there, sorry.
that's okay. I've got Jennifer and Brandon. I've got a second from District 1
I'll second, Josh.
and Josh, and a second from Districts 2, 3, and 4. Kelly or Chris?
Yep. So,
And-
yes, yes.
All right.
All
All
right.
in favor from all the districts, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, those are accepted. I think next up, Shelby, is for District 4, the interim claims, which was page 27.
Yep. So page 27 of the District 4 packet are the interim claims. These are all bills that have been processed since the district last met in November. So we have a total here at the bottom of $197,740.77. And just as a reminder, these bills come to us, generally are submitted by your district manager and go through the various levels of approvals before they're released for payment. Any questions?
Shelby, I had just a couple of questions on there. Most of the vendors I recognize, but there's two that I just want to ask about. Foothills facility maintenance, and maybe Jerry needs to ask. I wasn't sure what they do for the district.
So they do all of the maintenance for the building as well as the pool and various things around the community that we don't have our landscapers do. They take care of that for us too, like repairs on playground equipment, things like that. Repairs on, electric work, kind of the mechanical systems, those type of items.
Got it. Was there, it's about 22,000 just for the last couple of months. Is that higher than normal or is that?
Yeah, it's higher than normal because it was, some of the invoicing was delayed. So
Yeah.
there's multiple months in that number.
Okay. And then the other one I didn't recognize on here was, I think it's Skidio Group. It's only 894, it's down at the bottom.
Mhm. Yes. That's the entity that does the cost verifications for District 4. So they're an engineer firm.
Yeah, so it's a third-party independent engineer that looks at any public improvements, just to make sure that the prices are valid and that they can be repaid.
Got it. Thank you.
Could I ask a quick question about that group then? I was going to ask later. As part of their pricing assessment they're doing for District 4, does that come? Do they provide any estimated cost in your time that goes along with it, like 5-year cost of ownerships or anything? Or is it only to validate that what we're absorbing that for is what we're expected?
Skidio Group's work for this district is only limited to the cost verification and review of public improvements that have gone in. So it's just a verification process.
Okay, no problem.
And then just thinking forward to 2021, I was looking, it looks like we're running at about a $12,000 to $13,000 a month run rate on Timberline for the last couple of months. And Jerry, I was just curious if that's where you anticipate being for the remainder of the year.
No, that'll drop down and level out.
Okay.
There were no other questions on the interim claims. I'd be looking for a District 4 board motion to ratify those claims.
So moved.
And a second. A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. I think that brings us on all of our agendas to our larger discussion, which is the district budgeting, operations, maintenance expenses, and revenue sources. So sort of our amorphous budget item, which is the how do we deal with expenses going forward?
Yep. So I will just kind of set the stage, give everybody a brief reminder of kind of where we left things at the budget hearing. So as all of you likely remember, throughout the 2021 budget process, there were a lot of conversations on just how the expenditures are being funded. Since there is a shortfall and the district has been reliant upon developer advances in the last several years, and just kind of how do we get these districts to a point where they are self-sufficient. So we just wanted to revisit that conversation, continue discussions. Certainly as we have these discussions, we want to get to a point where the 2022 budget process hopefully runs a little bit smoother, and we have various plans to make the process more efficient for this year. And then just, again, kind of plan for, what the future looks like for the development and what those funding sources may be. So again, as a general reminder, the districts do have a cap on the O&M mill levy, as well as the debt service mill levy, but that O&M mill levy is capped at 20 mills. That has been subject to adjustment for changes in the residential assessment ratio. So right now is about 22.665 mills, I believe. And then there are also constraints on fees that the district is able to impose. So I believe right now the district can impose a facilities fee, I believe, up to a certain amount per home, but the district does not currently have the ability to impose any type of operations and maintenance fee. So both of those items, if they were to be explored further, would require involvement and work with the town. So again, purpose of today, we just wanted to continue the conversation, get further direction on any analyses or any additional work that we may need to do to help facilitate these conversations. We do have an item on the District 4 agenda for a reserve study, and that will certainly kind of play a part in some of this discussion as well. And then I think the last thing I'll mention before I turn it over to all of you is, CLA has done some preliminary work on some analyses. I think a few years ago when the clubhouse was opened, and then more recently as well with the refinancing of the District 1 bonds. So we've started some of that work, and we can certainly continue that and put together more formal analysis if and when we need to. So all of that said, I think I would turn it over to, District 4 and District 1 boards, and just kind of get additional thoughts and see if there's further direction for myself or Jennifer or Jerry to continue pushing this forward.
So I guess I'll open the discussion up here with, kind of following from the budget season in 2020, coming into 21. I think the intent is really to kind of, have a better process in 21 into 22, but also identify, what the options are, I guess, for sources of revenue, and also probably to understand, I guess, where we want to be in terms of level of services. So I think it's a combination of a few different areas in terms of probably need to start with the level of services and define that, and what do we want to provide for the community and for the district as we move forward. And obviously that's going to be a joint effort between District number 1 and District number 4, and and residents as well, and then going to the next step of what the sources are, and how do we fund those. And so I think we need to set up a process, and establish a process and timing, and how do we want to move along in terms of these conversations. Understand, I guess, the background work that you have done, Shelby. What was the history on all of that? So I guess those are kind of my preliminary thoughts. Just open it up to Kelly and Josh and Jason, I guess, and talk through any additional thoughts there. and other board members, of course. Jennifer, Chris, anyone else?
So I think definitely going over the levels of service and what our current LOS is versus what our future state level of service would look like would definitely be a very good starting point. I know we have $90,000 marked as that other revenue for next year's budget, but it definitely seems like we may need to adjust that as well, seeing the changes from the 2020 budget. So definitely getting an understanding of that piece. But yeah, it will definitely think the LOS would be the best piece to start, and then what the expectations of District 4 for those funding sources for that 90,000 are.
Yeah, I mean, this is Kelly. I would concur that I think, for this to be effective and successful, that going through and developing a level of service matrix, kind of current state and proposed future state or suggested state or options for levels of service and what that means as you ratchet up levels of service needs to be a fundamental part of the analysis, so that residents can look at that and say, okay, here's where we are today, and here are some progressive views of what levels of service could look like and what the associated cost is with those services.
All right. Do we have a breakdown of what we currently offer our community and what our current level of service is that for what's being offered for District 1 and District 2 that have been built out versus what the full plan is for when all 5 districts are complete? Because to me, like as a resident here, when you talk about the services that are offered, the only thing that jumps to my mind is, hey, we got a clubhouse and a pool. I know we have trails and the 2 pocket parks, stuff like that, but do we actually have a list of what the services are that?
Well, those are amenities. I mean, when I think about levels of service are in support of those bricks and mortar things. So, as an example. If you were to look at a level of service today, we have lifeguards, right? Or we have 2 lifeguards, but we'd really like 3, or we want we want the pool to be open a longer part of the year. So instead of closing in Labor Day, we want it to stay open. And I'm just using this to be illustrative. We want it to stay open longer. Obviously, there are costs associated with ratcheting up that level of service. So yes, it's important to know what's there today in terms of amenities, trails, open space, parks, pools, that sort of stuff. That's one piece of it. And then it's the services associated with maintaining or providing service to the residents that live in the community. So another example would be snow removal. You want to change the snow removal standards to have more snow removal. Well, that costs money. So okay. Those are when you talk about levels of service. Okay. Those are the sorts of things I'm looking at.
That makes sense. So do we have what the level of service was for the last 3 years versus what like a breakdown of what that is? So like the snow removal, for instance, the last 3 years, I'm sure if I remember correctly, we have a trigger point when it meets X amount that it happens. Do we have those documented out anywhere? What our current level of service that we offer the community is?
We certainly should. I mean, Jerry, that's a question for you. I mean,
yeah,
we have contracts with landscape firms to mow the grass in the summer and pull the weeds and water the trees, and we have a level of service for snow removal. So yes, I'm assuming we have.
Yeah, we have all that information. What makes it? I mean, and we can put it together into a matrix, easy enough. The one point I would point out that's variable is as the community grows, right. The district takes on additional landscaping, any future amenities, more trails. So as the district gets more property, the level of service stays the same, but the actual costs increase.
Yep. No, and so do the rate payers. Right. So do the number of people paying it.
Yep. Yeah, sources of revenue increases as well. Right. So I think we need to understand, I guess, what the stabilized costs are of the entire community when it's all built out, when we have all the track open space, in place as well. So kind of like a future state. It's, I think it was Kelly was showing there of what that would be in the future, and what is the current state, and how do we get to that point?
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, but if we're going to talk about adjusting those level services, I think understanding what our current level services is the perfect starting place for that piece of it. Just knowing, I mean, coming in, knowing how the area was sold, that hey, we're coming in, there's no additional HOA fees, it's all covered, operation and maintenance covered from your metro taxes. Well, hey, that level of service is established when we came in. Why are we changing now? It's kind of nice knowing what we're thinking of changing and how to best relay that to groups. So if we can get that matrix listed out of what the level of service has been for basically the last 3 to 4 years, that would be really helpful. And then I guess that kind of goes into another question for Kelly, Brandon, District 4. Since as you guys have been taking on and absorbing new amenities and new pieces from Oakwood into the district, if we don't have the levels of services documented, how are you guys doing cost analysis to ensure that absorbing that build out is going to be maintainable based on the current O&M fees and cost?
I think that's what we want to try to achieve this year to determine that.
No, not
that's
perfect.
That's the point of what we're doing here.
Okay, yep. I just didn't know that since we've already been going for so many years that you guys had a matrix you were using to understand where those costs were at and where the revenue sources were going to be at from the time of basically founding the districts to what that long state was going to be.
Yeah, I think that's the end goal of what we're trying to get to here.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think for current year level of service, I mean, I think the budget is, outlines exactly what that service is. And I think Jerry can, talk through exactly, how the budget was built and what services are provided for 2021.
Yep. Well, so while we have the budget piece, what would be really helpful is having it broken down in a way that a common resident can look at and go, hey, we need to trim $90,000 from the budget, so we're going to change the level of service. What we need to really do is break that down to the residents. Go, hey, we're trimming down $90,000 by adjusting our rate of snow removal from 0.25 inches to 0.5 inches. That's where we're seeing it happen at, and that's going to affect these areas. So if we can get that current level of service broken down for, like Kelly was saying, hey, snow removal, watering trees, things like that, what the expectations are that we currently have to meet, that would be really helpful so we can explain that when the time comes to the residents of what we're doing. Because like I said, I've been here 4 years. I literally have no idea what all our level services are that we're supposed to be ensuring.
Well, and the other one you would do as part of this is, to the extent there are requirements from the municipality, right, or the county in a level of service, those should also be identified as well.
Jennifer, you mentioned, or somebody mentioned, requiring town approval to do any sort of fees. And if I remember right from the service plan, there is a facilities fee in that service plan that the District 4 had attempted to implement back when the clubhouse was initially built. More open to the public. But can you walk us through what we can do and what requires town approval?
Yeah. So yes, you're right. The town, as a general matter, requires pre-approval for any fees that the district might want to charge. At the time the service plan was approved, there was pre-approval for a facilities fee of up to $5,000 per residential unit for every unit in the district. Of that, I think only 1,500 of that has been utilized. So there is some facility fee pre-approval capacity that could be utilized for facilities type fees. But that's more of a cost of the facility fee as opposed to operating and maintenance cost. So that's not that useful of a pre-approval. So in order to do something going forward, we would need to go to the town and explain to them why we needed to implement a new fee and what that fee would be, and sort of get them to approve the parameters of that fee.
Got it.
And then on the other side, the mill levy side, the service plan also caps, as Shelby was saying, both the debt service and the operations and maintenance mill levy. So if we wanted to change the operation and maintenance mill levy, which, I mean, to be honest with you, is an easier way to collect revenue for the district because it goes through the county. You know, you can, there's the threat of foreclosing a home, not just me sending a bunch of notices saying you didn't pay your fees and you've been bad, right? So it's easier to collect mill levies. It's less cost intensive to collect mill levies. But that's also a more difficult process because not only would we have to go to the town for a service plan amendment, not just an approval, it would be a actual amendment to the service plan, which is more hoops to jump through. But even if the town did approve that, which, you know, if residents supported, I don't know why the town wouldn't approve it. We would also have to go to an election because the other cap on mill levies is through Tabor. So you can't have any increased taxes without a vote of the people. And our previous authorization was linked to a service plan amount. So to go above and beyond that, we would have to get a majority vote of all the voters in the district to approve that.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. You know, for those that may have attended some of the Town of Erie Board of Trustee meetings as of late, right? The attitude of that group towards special districts and fee increases is not positive. It's probably not a good environment to go and ask whether we ask for an amendment to our mill levy or to a fee increase. I don't think we're going to have a positive reaction unless there is resident approval. I think I agree with Jennifer's sentiments that if the residents support it, then I think that's probably our only shot of getting the Board of Trustees to support it. I think that's unlikely in the current environment. You know, a couple of years ago, somebody hosted at the clubhouse the treasurer for the Weld County assessor, where the assessor presented to our residents that you know, at the time we had the highest mill levy of anybody in Weld County. And honestly, that meeting wasn't well attended, but that discussion has made it around the Facebook group in this community. It's the shot heard around the world, and that's kind of the current thought of it. We've done a lot to correct that from a District 1 perspective in refinancing the District 1 bond and getting that down. All that being said, I think that's my way of saying, you know, I think the prospects of a fee or mill levy increase, I think are pretty narrow, to be honest. And I think the discussion around level of service is one of two levers we can pull, right? You change the level of service, you balance the budget kind of on the bottom end, or the only other option on the top end is an increase to the developer advance. And I know we've been down that path. I don't think Oakwood is super excited about putting in additional funds into the district in the form of a developer advance. But I think there's been enough discussion on our recent budget and everything else that I know, at least it's my perception, I think some of the other residents share it, that the reason that we're in this District 4 crunch on the budget perspective is that we have deferred maintenance, right? The developer didn't put in money up front. Every year gets kicked, it builds a little bit more. And now we have a big problem from an expense perspective. If you were to remove some of the deferred maintenance from the budget discussions, I actually think the budget gets pretty darn close to balancing out. So I guess from my perspective, in order to feel comfortable going to my residents and asking them to support some sort of mill levy increase or a fee increase, it's got to be met on the other side with some commitment from the developer to increase the developer advance or do some sort of catch up.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, was that Jennifer? You can.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I agree with Josh 100%. And I mean, I personally am not comfortable with an additional fee or raising the mill levy rate because it is excessively high, I feel personally, and I don't feel comfortable asking homeowners for that. I don't know how much discussion has been with the developer, but if the word got out, because I've seen it on the Erie Facebook page many times, hey, what do you guys think about Erie Highlands? And if the word gets out, oh, don't move there, their rates are insanely high. You don't want to pay those kind of taxes. I mean, that's going to affect the developer directly. So I don't know how much has been mentioned in that sense to the developer, but I've seen it several times just recently, and I know some real estate agents I'm friends with too. And it's a point of topic of purchasing a home here. Again, so I just don't know what the discussion's been with the developer. I feel like personally they're kind of letting us down here, but that's my personal opinion on that one.
And this, Jason, I think the biggest thing we need to kind of understand too is how did board 4 get us here? How we have estimates each year of what the revenue is going to be from property taxes. The district was founded under Oakwood Guide and ownership, and we knew they are also the ones giving us these public improvements. So Board 4, I just kind of want to look more into. I know you're owned by the developer, but you also have a duty to us as well as residents here of how did we get here and how can we adjust it? I know I spoke last time that I really feel residents need to be on Board 4 so that we can have more oversight and overview of this. I personally, for additional bringing in fees and that piece onto our residents, I don't think that's fair to ask if we're not on the actual board that's going to be doing that, over managing those costs. I know we're working better together. I am very appreciative of us working together more on this piece and being more proactive on it. But Kelly, you come from the public side of it as well. When an improvement gets presented out, there's usually a 5-year cost of ownership plan with a lot of things that come in. I work in nonprofits, and like anything we roll out, I have to have 5 years of funding for it to be identified before we take anything out. So I mean, it's how did we get to the point now where we're only 5 years as a major build out that we're 90 grand in the hole, without having those revenue sources really identified and hammered down. But I definitely do want to continue to work together. I do appreciate it. Like Josh said, going to the town of trustees would be very hard for that fee increase. Even if we did that fee increase, Board 4, are you for that fee? Are you going to are we looking at doing all districts, or what districts do we need to identify for that?
Well, I just want to be clear that I don't think we're making a recommendation of anything at this point. We don't have a recommendation of any fee increase, any mill levy increase, any level of service cut. We want to put everything on the table and and make sure that we have the proper sources and we have the proper expenses to make sure it all balances. Now, this year, and moving forward to the future. I mean, that's the goal of what we're trying to achieve here.
Yep, no, definitely.
And we have constraints. We've got guardrails right now. We have guardrails of 22 mils for O&M, and we have guardrails for fees. And so, we're constrained. So if we don't want to look at any other sources, we have to look at our and change our level of service. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Okay. So
I mean, this process that we want to go through is identify, how much we want to spend, what do we want to provide, and how do we maintain our revenues, or how do we, have different sources?
Yep. So it sounds like we need to get first and foremost is the breakdown of our current level of service. I think we can all agree upon that. We need it written out in a easily consumable form of what our current level of services are. Jerry, is that something we can task you with, or who would be the best to task for that?
So yeah, I mean, I can do that on all of the line items that we're involved in. Okay. The financial line items that Shelby handles, I can't speak to those, so she would have to.
Yep. Well, I think that's what we should kind of break out is what are services basically versus what are things that we have to survive. So we have to have our lawyer, we have to have our financial counsel, we have to have these pieces and parts. So those we can't touch, and well, we could touch, but it'd be very not smart. Sorry, it is too late in the day for me. But basically, our services that can be amended and worked through. So snow removal, changing how much we do, how often we cut the grass in certain areas, things like that. So those services listed out, lifeguards that Kelly had mentioned. So having what our actual services, and then below that, what are, hey, we have to have this because we have to use these to operate. And then we can kind of look at adjusting what the services that we provide are.
Yeah, Jason, what I think you're describing, in my mind, I mean, I think we almost need a, 5 years would be great, but baby steps, a 2 to 3 year budget that is maybe a couple of scenarios, right? Of higher level of service and lower level of service. I think as I look back, I think that the budget issue would have been very apparent if we had that the last couple of years, right? Because we talked about putting in kind of deferred maintenance planning in 3-year cycles. And like, if we had a 3-year budget, it would have been very clear that, yeah, we're making the budget balance this year, but year 2 and 3 are looking really bad. So I think that's needed just from a perspective. I think the reserve study will help with that. But also, I think if we get to the answer of needing to increase revenues from one source or another, that is what I need to be able to take to residents to prove to them why this isn't just a 1-year aberration or something else. I've really got to be able to show them, look, we're not looking at next year's budget. We're looking at 3 years out, and this is the problem we're having. This isn't a short-term solution. This is a long-term solution. And I think that that's what, Shelby has kind of started working on aspects of it, but I think that's what we really need is a 3-year budget where we can look at that and adjust level of service within it.
So Shelby, can you speak to that in terms of, I guess, your past planning, your kind of future planning?
Yeah. Yep. Good questions and good discussion. So to describe a little bit more of the analyses that we've done, it's kind of taken, what does our budget look like currently, and what are some of those things that, some of the deferred maintenance that you've mentioned, what are some of those things that, maybe we had to cut in the current year budget, but we still need to kind of include in. And so we've just built that out and kind of done an inflationary increase on all expenses, looked at build out projections that the developer has provided, again, in conjunction with some of the bond issuances and refinancings. I think I would add on to that. I don't have specific examples for you today. I was going to add, I think the level of service is step 1. I think step 2 in my mind is looking at the budget and what does it look like today compared to full build out, and compare that to our kind of development projections and pull that all together to see, at the end of the day, do we still have a shortfall? And if so, then we get to that discussion of how is that going to be funded. One thing I think that the boards could consider is whether or not we would want to do a committee similar to what we did with the 2021 budget, and just maybe select a couple board members from District 1 and District 4 to have more detailed conversations with Jerry and I as we dig into some of this a little bit more and pull together more detailed information. Because, as Brandon said, we don't have a recommendation today. We're not going to get to the point of making a decision or recommendation tonight. And so, a committee might be a way to go to kind of keep this moving without having to continue to kind of pull the full boards together.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think we should move forward with that, a committee that involves both 1 and 4.
Well, I know for the budget committee, I believe we had Brandon, Kelly, Josh, and Jason. Again, can't have 3 or more from each board because otherwise we've run into quorum issues. So we can certainly revisit that team, or we could proceed with that same team if that feels appropriate.
I'm willing to participate.
Yeah, I am as well. The only one I might want to check with is Sam, since he's not here today. He had expressed some interest in doing that. I'd be happy swapping myself out if that's the case.
Okay.
Great. So you want to circle back with Sam then and just check on that?
Yeah, okay. I'll get in touch with him.
Yeah, and Shelby, I was doing a lot of nodding there because you were going exactly where I was sort of going to lead the group was, do you want to do a committee? Because I know not all of us are needed. And you know, as much as I appreciate Jason recognizing that getting rid of your lawyer is a bad idea, you don't need your lawyer for everything, and numbers is definitely a place where you don't need your lawyer. So.
Okay. Well, I think then, you know, we can move in that direction. And so it sounds like we definitely have Brandon from District 4, and then Josh, if you want to determine those 2 members from District 1, we can move forward, and certainly Kelly or other District 4 board members, we'd be happy to have you as well. So I think, you know, Jerry and I can get started in terms of that level of service based on our current budget, so that we can be prepared with that. And then once we have the committee members identified, we'll work on scheduling a follow-up meeting to continue.
And Shelby, maybe if you could outline, I guess, you know, just a framework of timing and, you know, I guess steps that we you know, you may want to recommend that we take along the way. So when we get to that first meeting, we could have like a framework in place that we can, you know, bat around and you know, talk through. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
And I'm not sure if there's any involvement with any other parties that we need to bring in terms of analysis or third party analysis, but we can get that to those discussions as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks.
Which I think is a perfect segue to the next thing that's on the agenda, which was a proposal that Jerry had solicited for a reserve study. And I don't know that we're ready to take action on that at this point. I mean, the information is here. And obviously, I think from a legal standpoint, it's a good idea for every community to have a reserve study. But I'm not sure that that's the next step. I think it's one of the steps in the process, but I guess I would throw that out to the boards to discuss.
We do have in the budget for 2021 reserve study. So I think it was contemplated that we would do a reserve study this year. So we have $5,000 in the budget, and there's I think a different, you know, different levels, I guess, of services that they would provide. So I think it's part of the plan for 21.
Yeah, and just to kind of explain it, it's more of a time. The difference in costs associated with it is more of a timing thing. So as you can see, you know, the quicker you get the reserve study completed and delivered to the boards, the more expensive it is. So if you're not in a rush to get this completed, then we could do the 12-week delivery and save a couple $1,000s. But, you know, so that's the actual process, and the analysis and the work that goes into it remains the same. It's just how compressed do you want the schedule to be? If you need it, you know, soon, then it's more expensive. If we're in a position where, you know, we can wait 3 months, then we can make the decision to move forward with it, with the 12-week delivery, and get them started on the work.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I feel like having the reserve study before we do the committee kickoff would be really helpful. That way we have the data readily available to kind of look at and know what we're shooting for. I know we're going to do some internal investigation, but having that reserve study to kind of provide those additional gotchas that we didn't think about would be really helpful. Even if we just did committee meeting 1, and then after first meeting we had everything after that, kind of the cadence with the results from the study would probably be helpful as well. But I don't know how well the committee could work without the results of the reserve study.
A couple comments, I guess, from my perspective. First of all, I guess interesting, I guess, the pricing option method here, you know, got the Amazon Prime business model, I guess, you know, for reserve studies. It seems like the 8-week versus 12-week, there's not much of a difference. And it seems like I don't know, I'd like to get Jerry's recommendation, I guess, of what, you know, you would think, but I don't necessarily want to wait until we have like a reserve study done. I want to get going on this, and I want to get started, and I want to have these conversations, you know, as soon as we can. So I necessarily do not want to wait 12 weeks before we have these, you know, initial discussions. So I recommend that we move forward quicker.
No, I like that idea as well, Brandon. Like moving forward with it, but I just being mindful of people's time and efforts as well. That's the only piece I was bringing up. But yeah, the 8-week versus 12-week. Yeah, it's negligible, I would feel, for having that additional time in there, that additional 4 weeks. But once again, that's up to board 4 on that piece. I think definitely before we have the committee study, I think, or the subcommittee meet, having the LOS broken down and then the broad outline of what our 3-year budget thoughts process is. But yeah, I just know this would help us in those guidance and in those thoughts.
It will, Jason. But from my perspective, we can get started on the level of service work and the budget work now. The way this reserve study is going to come to us as far as the results go are going to be really easy for us to plug into the efforts that we do prior to whatever this completion date is. And this study is really just going to go over district assets. There's a lot within the budget service wise that we can address prior to a delivery date for this particular effort.
Jerry, what's your recommendation of the options here that they present?
My recommendation is the 8-week full site with a site visit. That's the most comprehensive, and it's worth an extra $250 in my opinion to shave off 4 weeks for the results.
Agreed. I agree.
Same thing. Can you tell us also, I guess with that, I mean, if it's within our budget, $4,080, and we have a budget at $5,000, is it comparable with other reserve studies that you've seen?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So given that, I mean, District 4, I think we can make a recommendation, move forward.
A motion, Brandon?
That is a motion.
Do I have
So
a
moved.
second? Kelly or Chris?
So moved.
That's a second. All right. All in favor of engaging the company to do the reserve study, the full version with a site visit for 8-week, with the 8-week delivery, please say aye.
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 And if there's anyone else that would like to, I'm not sure, Jerry, on the site visit, you can, bring in a committee member to that discussion site visit. If it's appropriate, I'd open it up.
Yeah, certainly. Get in touch with us. Just reach out to us if you would like to participate in that site visit.
And then I guess my only question would be, I know we're looking at the 8-week full site visit, but what are we looking for a kickoff date for them, or turnaround time to get started?
We haven't gone to that level yet because we didn't know if the board was going to recommend moving forward or not.
Okay. No
So
problem.
prior to spending extra money on that, we wanted to wait for the decision. So we will, whoever wants to be involved in the site meeting, let us know so that we can get that scheduled and get them kicked off so that they can start that 8-week process.
Sounds good. If you want to, Jerry, even if I'm not going to be like fully involved, if you just want to send or shoot out an email maybe to the board to let us know, hey, we engaged, we have a kickoff on this day, something like that. That way we're not harassing you to come to another board meeting, but just kind of having that update to know what's happening in the background. I'd
Sure.
be appreciative, my friend.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can do the same thing with District 4 as well. Just
I'll send it to
email.
both.
Send it to both districts, and if we can participate, we'll limit it to 2 people. We'll take
Okay.
2 people each board.
Great. That takes us to other business, for which I think we only had the 2 items. The design review committee regulations regarding political signs and flags was on all 5 districts' agendas. That was on the agendas from a public comment that was received, I believe, in the November meeting, or maybe earlier than that. As a result of that, we did work with Brittany and Jerry just to look at the design guidelines and make sure that they were accurately reflecting the intent of the board. That being that what we're regulating here is not the content of signs, but the size of the flagpole and the height of the flagpole, and making sure we're following town guidelines regarding signs and their locations. So we've produced some revisions to the design guidelines to address those 2 things, which I sent out to you all yesterday. We also, at the same time, thanks to Jason's question, which we discussed earlier in the meeting regarding the basketball hoops, we realized that there was a discrepancy in the CC&Rs where they just vaguely said that all playground equipment couldn't exceed 9 feet in height, but then didn't define playground equipment. And it would be impossible for any standard basketball hoop to be under 9 feet. So we added a definition in the design guidelines defining what playground equipment is, not to include basketball hoops, and then separately calling out basketball hoops to be of a standard height. When allowed, where allowed, not to revisit that discussion. So those are the recommendations that we're making for the District 4 board to approve today to changes to the design guidelines.
And Jennifer, I apologize if I've missed it, but I think the original public comment was about political signs being limited to one. And how was that addressed in the changes?
So actually the design guidelines only had regulations in them for the placement of signs on district-owned property. All private property is regulated by the town guidelines. We actually found it strange that there was even a regulation for district property. We thought really everything should be default to the town. So the change that's being proposed, and I apologize, this didn't make it into the meeting packet because it was still a work in progress when the packets went out. The change that was made was actually just to remove any regulation of signs. So everything is defaulted to the town's standards.
Got it. That makes perfect sense. Thanks.
I'm happy to answer any other questions. If there are none, what I'd be looking for would be a board 4 motion to approve the revised design guidelines.
I'll make that motion.
And a second.
I'll second.
District 4 board member Kelly or Chris, do you want to second that?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Brandon.
I did. I said aye.
Okay, so I didn't hear you. Okay.
It was good.
All right.
Kelly overshadowed me there.
Motion carries. The other item that we have on some of the agendas was considering approval of a fee for operations and maintenance expenses for carriage houses. Just to give an update on this. So I guess a general 30,000 foot overview of this issue is that there are the carriage house product line that are going to be built in what's currently part of District 2 and/or 3. And these are attached units. I think it's 4 attached units. Jerry, start talking over me if I'm completely off base.
They're detached. They
Okay,
just share a common auto court.
Yes, okay, sorry. They have the common auto court, and there's additional services that are provided because of that shared auto court. So additional snow removal, there's some additional district maintenance of landscaping. So things that differ from all of your houses that are out there right now. Because of that, it costs more for the district to provide those services. So the sentiment of District 4 has been that that should be covered by a fee that is specific to the individuals that reside in the carriage houses. We've been working with a rate consultant to look at that. We've had preliminary discussions with the town about the ability to get an additional fee approved for that. As you know, as mentioned earlier, the town sentiment towards districts is not the most positive, but the thought is that if there's a well-reasoned need for a fee, that the board would be amenable to approving that. So this is still a work in progress. That's just sort of what this is. What I'm actually asking for today, because I wasn't sure how far along in the process we'd be, is a ratification of the engagement of TST to perform the rate analysis. They've started the work, but we haven't actually formally engaged them. So I need District 4 to formally engage them so they can finish that rate analysis and authorize us to go to the town to ask for the ability to charge this fee. And then assuming the town gives us an authorization, what I'd be bringing back to District 4 in the future would be a resolution actually imposing the fee. So happy to answer questions on that.
I apologize. I know this is a District 4 issue. Is the timing of this such though that it's you're all considering it because you've got to work through you got to get the fee before you could actually probably move forward with the product line and then plan it all out? Is that? I was just trying to figure out how the timing works.
Yeah, so this has been something that's been looked at for the last couple of years. Actually, the timing on this has been fairly slow, but yes, you're right that the fee needs to be implemented because we need to know where the town goes with the fee, because if not, the developer is going to have to make some changes regarding the structure of the product line. It's sort of a chicken and an egg, right? So that is the timing. So at one point I did ask the question of like, is this something we should be waiting for to see if we bundle it with another fee request from the districts or not? And the answer was that they really needed to move independently because of that timing problem.
Yeah, so Josh, I think that in terms of the timing, I think Oakwood intends to deliver home sites, to our home building division later in the year. And so, it's always been planned to have this collection of homes, which is, I think it's going to be a great addition to the community. It's always been planned. We've got the bond issuance that has included, these homes in there as well. So it's been part of the long-term plan to have these homes in place. So they will be getting underway later in the year after home sites are delivered and complete. So it's taken a long time to get here in terms of the planning process and the subdivision planning process, and this is a component of that. And so I think we have to consider whether the request for this fee was going to go combined with any other request, but that's a completely separate process, and we want to move forward with this. And so and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the collection and the homes that are being built. You might have seen some plans or been shared some plans, I guess, with the Oakwood team. But I think it'll be successful for the community.
And then follow-up question was, what makes this a district cost, and which budget is this an O&M cost that comes out of the District 4 budget, or is this it's a two-part question? Why would it be a district cost versus developer cost? And then two, which budget does this come out of?
So I'll give you a quick answer. This is ongoing operations and maintenance. So the homes are designed so that they have, and Jerry kind of mentioned that earlier, there's a common driveway, like a common small cul-de-sac that 4 homes share, and it brings density to the community, and it brings homes that is similar to a townhome community, where you have private driveways that require snow removal, and have landscaping areas that are maintained by the overall area. And so on an annual basis, you're basically going to be paying for snow removal on those kind of private cul-de-sacs, and also landscape maintenance and winterizing, and the annual treatment of landscaping in the common areas.
And to answer the second part of your question, Josh, as far as it being a district expense, what we've done in other communities is we break out a separate fund, and CLA tracks those expenses out of that separate fund, so that there's not an intermixing between what you pay in a mill levy tax base versus what these services are. They're completely separated out so that you can see transparently what those costs are, and if the service fee revenue is such that it covers those costs.
Yeah, and I apologize. I didn't ask that question in the best way. So Jennifer was mentioning that you're looking for District 4 to, I think, approve the firm that's working on the fee analysis. My question was, why would the fee for that consultant be a district cost versus a developer cost?
Because the district will ultimately be the one paying the operations and maintenance for these common areas. And so the district needs authorization from the town to have the ability to charge the fee. And so the district needs to have the backup for what that reasonable fee might be.
Okay. Yeah.
Would it be reasonable to expect for the developer to reimburse the cost of the fee back to the district then?
I think that kind of gets to the overall budget and the developer advances that are being provided. So the $290,000 of developer advances for 2021 includes all the expenses involved in the 2021 expenses, which includes the fee analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, Jason, to get to your point, I don't really see this isn't really the district doing something for the developer. I mean, this is the district needs to know what the reasonable cost of operations and maintenance related to this product will be. So, I mean, the district really needs this information and we want to have a third party verifying it. I mean,
Okay.
Jerry and the Oakwood folks have been giving input on what those costs have been in other communities. But from a district standpoint, from my legal standpoint, I want a third party to look all that over and say, yeah, that's reasonable, because I need to make sure that the district is charging a reasonable fee.
Okay.
And
then,
that's the same thing the town will want to know.
And then what happens if the town declines to accept the fee for us to charge that fee? What is our contingency plan on that?
The contingency planned on that is that we could potentially utilize one of the districts that aren't currently being utilized to do an overlapping operations and maintenance mill levy to cover those additional costs, but it's really sort of a silly use of the special district just for that purpose. But that's all I've come up with so far. So it's back to the drawing board. We will see.
So I make a motion to ratify the agreement.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Chris, all right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, if my scribbled notes here are right, that covers all of the matters on all the district agendas.
Can I just ask another question about the carriage homes? One of the issues with the carriage homes is that the garages don't fit trucks. Is there a plan for the district and the covenants and all the rest of it around parking and how that's going to be addressed? Because they're obviously all going to need to be on the street, because I know for carriage homes you're not allowed to park trucks in the forecourts.
I have absolutely no idea. So I would open that up to Jerry or Brandon or anybody else to answer.
It's an interesting question. I should study the plan of the carriage house, because they do probably accommodate, I mean, it's a standard size garage, and so they may not accommodate 100% of the trucks, size of trucks and length of trucks. They may fit a standard F-150 perhaps. I don't know exactly.
I know because we've seen.
It might not be a 250. Yeah. So, but I think, in general, the carriage house collection has a 2-car garage, it's a tuck under garage. And you're right that, there's prohibition of parking, any vehicles within the cul-de-sac, within that private cul-de-sac. And, but that's 2 cars under the tuck-in garage. So good question. I assume that, there's more trucks, I guess, in Erie than there are in, different communities, perhaps, I'm not sure. But it's an interesting question.
Well, in town of Erie does not allow for a vehicle to be parked on the street for more than 24 hours. So that may run into issues there as well. So if it is vehicles that can't fit in the garage and they have to park on the street, town of Erie enforcement would actually be contacted to remove the vehicle.
The carriage homes over in Reunion definitely don't fit trucks, and specifically F-150s. So unless they're changing the model for here, I think that could definitely be an issue given the number of trucks that we have around.
Yeah.
If that's something that could perhaps be looked into for subsequent meetings, that I think would be helpful as we're planning out the carriage house collection.
Okay, yeah, we'll make a note of that.
Thank you.
That's a great question. All right, with that, I think we are ready for a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion for District 1.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion for District 1 and for Districts 2 through 5. Kelly or Chris, do you want a second?
Okay.
All right, one of the district board members, second.
Second by Jason.
Thank you, Jason. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Jennifer.